Georg Henry Anton Joris Ivens was a Dutch documentary filmmaker and communist. Early life and career. Born Georg Henry Anton Ivens into a wealthy family, Ivens went to work in one of his father's photo supply shops and from there developed an interest in film. Under the direction of his father, he completed his first film at 13. In college he studied economics with the goal of continuing his father's business, but an interest in class issues distracted him from that path. He met photographer Germaine Krull in Berlin in 1923, and entered into a marriage of convenience with her between 1927 and 1943 so that Krull could hold a Dutch passport and could have a veneer of married respectability without sacrificing her autonomy. Originally his work focused on technique, especially in Rain, a 10-minute short filmed over 2 years, and in The Bridge. Around this time he was involved in the creation of the film Liga based in Amsterdam, which drew foreign filmmakers to the Netherlands such as Alberto Cavalcanti, René Clair, Sergei Eisenstein, Vsevolod Pudovkin, and Jigar Vertov, who also became his friends. In 1929, Ivens went to the Soviet Union and was invited to direct a film on a topic of his own choosing, which was the new industrial city of Magnitogorsk. Before commencing work, he returned to the Netherlands to make Industrial Symphony for Philips Electric, which is considered to be a film of great technical beauty. He returned to the Soviet Union to make the film about Magnitogorsk, Song of Heroes, in 1931 with music composed by Hans Eisler. This was the first film on which Ivens and Eisler worked together. It was a propaganda film about this new industrial city where masses of forced laborers and communist youth worked for Stalin's 5-year plan. With Henry Stork, Ivens made Misera o Boronage, a documentary on life in a coal mining region. In 1943, he also directed 2 Allied propaganda films for the National Film Board of Canada, including Action Stations, about the Royal Canadian Navy's escorting of convoys in the Battle of the Atlantic, U.S., and post-World War II career. From 1936 to 1945, Ivens was based in the United States for Per Lawrence's U.S. Film Service. In the year 1940, he made a documentary film on rural electrification called Power and the Land. It focused on a family, the Parkinsons, who ran a business providing milk for their community. The film showed the problem in the lack of electricity and the way the problem was fixed. Ivens was, however, known for his anti-fascist and other propaganda films, including The Spanish Earth, for the Spanish Republicans, co-written with Ernest Hemingway and music by Mark Blitzstein and Virgil Thomson. Jean Renoir did the French narration for the film and Hemingway did the English version only after Orson Welles' sounded too theatrical. This film was financed by Archibald MacLeish, Frederick March, Florence Eldridge, Lillian Hellman, Louise Rayner, Dudley Nichols, Frank Catone, and other Hollywood movie stars, moguls, and writers who compose a group known as the Contemporary Historians. Spanish Earth was shown at the White House on July 8, 1937, after Ivens, Hemingway, Martha Gellhorn, had dinner with President Franklin D. Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Harry Hopkins. The Roosevelts loved the film but said that it needed more propaganda. This 1937 documentary was considered his masterpiece. In 1938 he traveled to China. The 400 million depicted the history of modern China and the Chinese resistance during the Second Sino-Japanese War, including dramatic shots of the Battle of Taiduang. Robert Capa did camera work, Sidney Lumet worked on the film as a reader, Hans Eisler wrote the musical score, and Frederick March provided the narration. It, too, had been financed by the same people as those of Spanish Earth. Its chief fundraiser was Louise Rayner, recipient of the Best Actress Oscar 2 years in a row, and the entire group called themselves This Time History Today, Inc. The Kuomintang government censored the film, fearing that it would give too much credit to left-wing forces. Ivens was also suspected of being a friend of Mao Zedong and especially Zhou Enlai. In 1944, Ivens made Know Your Enemy, Japan for Frank Capra's U.S. War Department film series Why We Fight. The film's commentary was written largely by Carl Foreman. It was never distributed because Emperor Hirohito had been depicted and wrongly labeled as a war criminal, and as the film was due for release there had been an American government policy shift to keep the emperor after the war as a means of maintaining order in post-war Japan. A combination of not being in step with the Truman administration and owing to the emerging Red Scare on known or suspected communists by the U.S. government after Roosevelt's death made Ivens leave the United States. Ivens' politics also put the kibosh on his first feature film project, which was to have starred Greta Garbo. In fact, Walter Wanger, the producer, was adamant about running him, Ivens, out of town, Hollywood, in 1946. Commissioned to make a Dutch film about Indonesian independence, Ivens resigned out of protest of what he considered ongoing imperialism. The Dutch were, in his view, resisting decolonization, and filmed Indonesia Calling in secret. For around a decade, Ivens lived in Eastern Europe, working for several studios there. His position concerning Indonesia and his taking sides for the Eastern Bloc in the Cold War annoyed the Dutch government. Over a period of many years, he was obliged to renew his passport every 3 or 4 months. According to later mythology, however, he lost his passport for 10 years. Which is not true. The fact that he would make it back to New York City to sit by the bedside of his old friend Paul Robeson when he was ill would belie that. From 1965 to 1970 he filmed 2 propaganda films about North Vietnam during the war. 17 Paralela, La Guerre du Peuple, and participated in the collective work Loin du Vietnam. He was awarded the Lenin Peace Prize for the year 1967. From 1971 to 1977, he shot How Yukong Moved the Mountains, a 763-minute propaganda documentary about the Cultural Revolution in China. He was given unprecedented access because of his pro-communist views and his old personal friendships with Zhou Enlai and Mao Zedong. Ivens was knighted by the Dutch government in 1989, and died on 28 June that year. Shortly before his death, he made the last of more than 40 films. Une histoire d'event. Filmography: The Flaming Arrow, Oh, Sunland, The Sun House, Film Sketchbook, The Sick Town, Instruction Films, Micro Camera, University Leiden, Movement Studies in Paris, Film Studies Dijk, The Street, Ice Skating, The Bridge, Rain, Bray Acres, Pordrenthi, Pile Diving, Zonland, We Are Building, Second Union Film, Zuiderzee, Tribune Film, Concrete Construction, Donegal Tonka, Philips Radio, Creosote, Consumol, New Earth, Boron Age, The Spanish Earth, The 400 Million, New Frontiers, Power and the Land, Our Russian Front, Action Stations, The Story of G.I. Joe, Indonesia Calling, The First Years, Friendship Triumphs, Peace Tour 1952, Chagall, Song of the Rivers, My Child, The Windrose, Rose of the Winds, The War of the 600 Million People, Letters from China, L'Italia non è un paese povero, Domaine en Anguilla, Carnet de Voyage, Pueblo en Armas, Le Petit Chapiteau, Le Train de la Victoire, Valparaiso, Le Mistral, Rotterdam Europort, Le Ciel, La Terre, Far from Vietnam, 17th Parallel, Vietnam in War, Le People et ses Fusils, Une histoire de ballon, How Yukong Moved the Mountains, Les Wiggers, Les Kazakhs, The Drugstore, A Tale of the Wind,